Ladies and gentlemen, the grand exit, the one they never saw coming, the plot twist that sent their carefully crafted narrative crumbling into chaos. You, the one they thought they had figured out, the one they thought they knew like the back of their hand, the one they assumed would always be there, the one they took for granted, never once considering that you might be the one who would slip through their fingers without a second glance, without a final word. It's funny, isn't it? How people think they own you, how they believe that your loyalty is a given, that your presence is something they can rely on, that you'll always be a part of their story, an ever-present background noise to their lives. They couldn't have been more wrong. But now, as you've walked away, as you've left them behind, they stand in disbelief, their lives hanging in the balance. They had no idea that it was their last moment with you, that moment when they were wrapped up in their own little worlds, blind to the fragile thread that tied you to them, that moment when they believed you'd always be there, waiting for them, always ready to forgive their mistakes, always giving them a piece of you, no matter how little they returned. But that moment was the last one. That was the moment when you silently said goodbye, and they never even knew. They never saw it coming. They were too caught up in their own selfishness, their own needs, to see that you had already made your decision. You had already decided that enough was enough. You had decided to take control of your life, to stop being the one who was always there for them, to stop being the one who gave and gave and gave without ever receiving anything in return. You saw the truth, and in that truth, you found your strength. The moment they thought they still had you was the moment you quietly slipped away, emotionally, physically, mentally. They didn't know it, but you were already gone. It's funny how they'll never realize, how they'll never understand that it wasn't some sudden explosion that caused you to leave. It wasn't one big fight, one single betrayal that made you walk away. It was the years of small, unnoticed moments. It was the times they took advantage of your kindness, the times they overlooked your needs, the moments when they disregarded your worth, when they expected you to always be there, always be the one to support, to care, to love, without ever giving you anything in return. It wasn't one single thing that did it. It was the slow erosion, the gradual unraveling of respect, of love, of connection. And then one day, you woke up and realized that you didn't need them. You didn't need to keep giving yourself away to people who didn't appreciate you. You didn't need to keep being the one who held everything together while they drifted in and out of your life without ever really seeing you, hearing you, understanding you. So, you walked away, but they had no idea. They didn't even notice until it was too late. Now, they'll try to convince themselves that you were the one who changed, that you were the one who became distant, that you were the one who started pulling away. And maybe in their world, that's how they'll try to make sense of it. Maybe they'll think that you just woke up one day and decided to leave. But that's not the truth, is it? No, the truth is that you left long before you actually walked away. You had already checked out, emotionally and mentally, long before you physically left. The cracks were there for a long time, hidden beneath the surface, and you were the only one who saw them. They didn't care to notice. They were too wrapped up in their own lives, too focused on their own drama, their own issues to see that you were slipping away. But now, they stand in the wreckage of their own making, wondering where it all went wrong. They'll try to trace it back to that last argument, to that final fight, but they'll never understand that it wasn't the argument that did it. It wasn't the fight. It was everything before that. It was all the moments they took you for granted, all the times they made you feel small, all the times they made you feel invisible. You were always there, always the one who showed up, always the one who put in the effort, always the one who cared. But they never saw it, and now they're left with nothing. Now, they'll try to piece together their broken world. They'll try to fill the gap you left behind with other people, with distractions, with anything they can find to fill the void. But it won't work, because the void you left behind isn't something they can fill. It isn't something they can replace with someone else, with another friendship, another relationship. They can't fill the space you once occupied, because that space was yours and yours alone. You were the one who understood them in a way no one else did. You were the one who saw them, really saw them, and still accepted them. But now, you're gone, and they'll never get that back. It's funny, isn't it? How people think they can just walk through life, leaving behind a trail of people who care about them, a trail of people who gave their time, their energy, their love, only to discard them when they're no longer useful, when they're no longer needed. They think they can just walk away, and that's it. But they're wrong, because when you leave an impression. When you walk away, you leave a mark. And no matter how much they try to convince themselves that it doesn't matter, no matter how many distractions they fill their lives with, they'll never forget you. They'll never forget the one person who cared enough to walk away. And you'll never forget them either. But you won't miss them. You'll remember the good times, the times when they were there, when they mattered. But you won't miss them, because you understand now. You understand that the people who really matter in your life will never take you for granted. They'll never make you feel like you're dispensable, like you're just another part of their story that they can throw away when they no longer need you. The people who really matter will show you that they value you, not just in words, but in actions. And when you walk away, when you say goodbye, it won't be because you don't care. It will be because you know that you deserve more. You deserve people who see you, who value you, who appreciate you for who you are. You deserve people who will never let you feel like you're just a footnote in their story. And so, you walk away. Not with bitterness, not with anger, but with a quiet sense of finality. You walk away knowing that you gave your best, knowing that you were there for them when they needed you, knowing that you gave them all that you had. But you also walk away knowing that it's time to take care of yourself now. It's time to stop giving to people who will never give back. It's time to stop pouring yourself into relationships that are one-sided. And as you walk away, you know that you're not the one who lost. Because the people who take you for granted, the people who never notice when you're gone, they're the ones who lost. And they'll never realize it until it's too late. They had no idea it was their last moment with you. And that's the tragedy. Because when you're the one who walks away, when you're the one who leaves, you're the one who wins. You're the one who walks into a future where you're valued, where you're respected, where you're loved for who you truly are. And they'll just be left behind, forever wondering where it all went wrong, forever trying to piece together the fragments of a story that they didn't even realize was already over. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The way life unfolds, how it can seem like everything is in place, everyone is content, and everything is exactly as it should be, until it isn't. Until the moment comes when they can no longer take you for granted. The moment when you realize that the silence you've been feeling wasn't just a lull, it was the space that was created the moment you stopped giving. You stopped giving your time, your energy, your love, your care. All those small, unnoticed moments of self-sacrifice that you poured into them, that they never acknowledged, have now built up to a point where you're empty, you're drained, and nothing you have to give will ever fill the gaping void inside. They never noticed, they never knew. So, you quietly slip away, and the instant it happens, it's like the whole world shifts, and suddenly, they're grasping at air. The ones who never valued your presence in their lives are now desperately trying to pull you back. They're scrambling, but it's too late. It was too late the moment they started to believe you would always be there, always waiting, always available, always forgiving. They thought they could take your loyalty, your time, your love for granted because it was a constant. They treated it like it was a resource that could be replenished endlessly. What they didn't know, what they never took the time to realize, was that your capacity to give has limits. And when those limits are breached, there comes a time when you have to walk away. The weight of those quiet, unnoticed moments adds up, each one building upon the last. And suddenly, there's a breaking point. They can't fathom that this is the end, that their final moment with you happened without them even realizing. To them, it was just another day, just another conversation, another chance to take you for granted, another opportunity to treat you like an afterthought. But for you, that was the moment, the one where everything clicked into place, the realization that you've been invisible to them, that they've never truly seen you for who you are. And once you make that realization, once that truth settles deep inside you, there's no going back. This is where you find your strength, where you realize that it was never about them. It was always about you, about your capacity to love, your willingness to give, your ability to care. But there's a point where it stops being healthy. There's a moment when you stop living for others and start living for yourself. It's not selfishness, it's self-preservation. It's survival. And when you make that decision, when you finally realize that you've given all you can and there's nothing left for them to take, that's when you walk away. That's when you silently yet powerfully exit their lives, and they'll never know. They'll never know that the last time you spoke, the last time you were in the same room, that was it. You were already gone by then, even if they didn't see it. The truth is, they probably never will. People don't see things like this until it's too late. They'll keep going on with their lives, distracted by the next crisis, the next drama, the next thing to occupy their attention. They'll be so wrapped up in their own world that they won't even realize you've already walked away from theirs. And maybe, just maybe, they'll try to convince themselves that it wasn't their fault, that it wasn't something they did. They'll blame you, tell themselves that you changed, that you became distant, that you stopped caring. But that's their defense mechanism. That's their way of avoiding the truth, that they had you, and they didn't value you until it was too late. Because the truth is painful. It's hard to admit that you lost someone who was always there for you. It's hard to admit that you took someone for granted, that you never truly understood their worth until they were gone. It's easier to tell yourself that it's their fault, that they were the ones who left, that they were the ones who decided to walk away. But deep down, they'll know. They'll know that the fault lies with them, that they were too blinded by their own life to see what they had in you. And that realization, the one that hits them when it's too late, will eat away at them for the rest of their lives. But you won't look back. Because the truth is, you're stronger now. You're clearer now. You've seen the truth and you've taken the necessary steps to protect your heart. You've learned that loyalty, love, care, all of these things are precious. They're not things to be taken lightly. You gave them freely, but now you know that there's a limit. And when you reached that limit, when the pain became too great, when the silent suffering became unbearable, you walked away. You didn't have to announce it. You didn't have to make a grand statement. You simply left. You quietly, silently, and decisively walked away. And that was your power. The most dangerous thing you can do to someone who took you for granted is to show them that you don't need them, and you didn't need them. You never did. You were giving because you chose to, but there came a point where you realized that they were taking without ever considering what you needed in return. The ones who really love you, the ones who really care, they never let you feel like you're an afterthought. They never make you feel like you're just there to fill a void, to serve a purpose. And when they leave, it will hurt. But it will never feel like betrayal. It will never feel like abandonment. And that's the difference between the people who matter and the people who don't. The people who matter will make sure that you feel seen, heard, and valued. They will never take you for granted. The others, the ones who only see you when they need something, who only value you when it benefits them, those are the ones who will be left behind. They'll be left wondering where you went, why you stopped being there, why you stopped caring. And by the time they realize that they were the problem, it will be too late. You'll be long gone, building a life that no longer includes them, a life where your worth is recognized and valued, where your love isn't just a commodity to be used until it's no longer needed. And the best part, you'll be at peace. Because when you walk away, when you stop trying to save relationships that were never meant to be saved, you'll feel lighter. You'll feel free. The weight that you were carrying, the weight of constantly giving and never receiving, will be gone. You'll be free to live your life for yourself, and that is the ultimate form of power. When they are left with the pieces of a broken relationship, with the remnants of someone they never truly valued, you will be somewhere else, thriving. You will be somewhere else, living a life that is all your own, one where you've learned to value yourself, where you've learned to stop giving to people who never gave you anything in return. You'll look back one day, but it won't be with regret. It will be with clarity, with understanding. You'll know that the moment you walked away, you were doing what was best for you. And they'll never even realize it was their last moment with you. Not until the years pass, not until they're faced with the hollow space where you used to be. And even then, they'll only be left with questions and no answers, left wondering why they never saw the truth when it was staring them in the face. But by then, it won't matter, because you'll be gone, and your absence will be the only thing they'll ever remember. And that is how you take control. You disappear from their lives, not in anger, but in strength, in the quiet power that comes from walking away, from people who never saw you for who you truly were. They never saw you for who you truly were. How could they? How could they understand the depth of your soul, the complexity of your character, when they were too wrapped up in their own narrative, when they were too busy making sure that their own needs were met, that they didn't stop to acknowledge that you were a person with your own desires, your own pain, your own hopes and fears? No, to them, you were just the background noise, the silent supporter, the one who was always there to pick up the pieces, the one who was always ready to listen, to care, to love. But they never saw you. And that's the tragedy. It's ironic, really, how people can get so comfortable in their own lives, in their own existence, that they forget the people who have been there for them all along. They think you'll always be there, that no matter how much they neglect you, you'll stay. But that's where they were wrong. Because there comes a time when you realize that your worth is not determined by how much you're willing to give to others, but by how much you're willing to give to yourself. When you finally wake up and understand that the constant sacrifice you've been making, the constant selflessness that you've been living by, was actually diminishing you, stripping you of your own identity, you can no longer ignore it. You can no longer play the part they've cast you in. You can no longer live in their shadow, always being the person who is needed, but never truly seen. And so you leave. But even as you leave, they'll never understand. They'll never comprehend the quiet power that comes from walking away. They'll be too busy thinking that you're just upset, that you'll come back once you've cooled off, that this is just another one of those moments where you'll forgive them and continue on as if nothing happened. But what they don't know, what they will never understand, is that you've already made up your mind. You've already seen the truth. You've already recognized that your value does not lie in their perception of you. It never did. And as they stand there, wondering why you've disappeared, why you've stopped answering their calls, why you've stopped putting in the effort, they'll start to fill in the gaps. They'll start to tell themselves stories, to create narratives that make sense of your absence. Maybe they'll tell themselves that you were the one who changed. Maybe they'll tell themselves that you became distant, that you stopped caring. Maybe they'll even try to convince themselves that they didn't do anything wrong, that they were the ones who were hurt by you walking away. But the truth is, the truth that they'll never be able to see, is that you didn't walk away because of some momentary lapse in judgment. You didn't walk away because of one argument, one disagreement. No, you walked away because you had been giving for so long, and no one ever saw the toll it took on you. No one ever saw that you were being drained, that you were losing yourself in the process of trying to be everything for everyone else. And it was only when you realized that you had nothing left to give, that you could no longer sacrifice yourself for people who never saw your worth, that you made the choice to walk away. You didn't leave because you were angry. You didn't leave because you were hurt. You left because you finally understood that your love, your care, your time, your energy, all of it was far too precious to be wasted on people who didn't value it. You saw that you were worth more than the scraps they had been throwing your way. You saw that you deserved more than just being someone's backup, someone's safety net, someone's constant support without ever being given the same in return. And that's when you realized it was time to stop. It was time to stop pretending that everything was okay. It was time to stop pretending that you were fine with being overlooked, with being taken for granted, with being the one who always did the work, while everyone else simply took. You were done. And once you made that decision, once you saw that the only person you could rely on was yourself, you understood something profound. You are the creator of your own story. No one else gets to define who you are. No one else gets to dictate how much you should give. And no one else gets to decide when enough is enough. Only you have that power. And once you claimed it, once you understood the strength that comes from walking away from the people who would never value you, it was over. Now, as they stand there, still caught in their own illusions, still trying to convince themselves that you'll come back, you're already far beyond their reach. You've already stepped into a future where you are not someone's convenience, where you are not an afterthought, where you are no longer the one who always gets left behind. You've learned the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes the best way to love someone is to stop letting them take advantage of you. The best way to show them that you matter is to walk away, to take your energy, your time, your care, and put it where it truly belongs. On yourself, on the people who truly see you, truly value you. And they'll never understand. Not until it's too late. They'll never know that the last time they saw you, that was it. They'll never realize that you had already made the decision, that you had already chosen to prioritize yourself, to stop being the one who bends and breaks for everyone else. And they'll continue on, caught up in their own lives, never once considering the role they played in losing you. It's not their fault. At least, not entirely. They were never taught to appreciate what they had until it was gone. They never understood the depth of your presence until you became a memory. And when they look back, when they finally realize what they've lost, they'll be left with nothing but regret. But by then, you'll be long gone, living a life that is yours to shape, yours to control. And that's the power of walking away, the power of leaving behind a world that never saw you for who you truly were. Because the moment you walk away, you stop being their background noise. You stop being the person they can always count on to be there, no matter how little they give in return. You stop being the one who always forgives, always understands, always puts up with their shortcomings. You walk away, not with anger, but with clarity. You walk away with the understanding that you are worth more than what they were willing to give you. You are worth more than their neglect, more than their disregard, more than their inability to see you for who you truly are. And that is the greatest form of power you can possess. They never saw you for who you truly were, but that's okay. You don't need them to. You know who you are. You know the value you hold. You know your worth. And as you walk away, you walk towards a future that is brighter, a future where you are seen, heard, and valued, a future where you are no longer the one who always gives and never receives, where you are no longer invisible. And that, in itself, is a victory that no one can take away from you. In the end, it all comes down to one undeniable truth. You are worthy of being seen, valued, and loved for who you truly are. The people who failed to recognize that, who failed to appreciate the depth of your presence in their lives, will eventually be left to grapple with the absence they never anticipated. But this absence is not your failure. It's their loss. You are not here to be anyone's afterthought, to be a placeholder or a convenient source of love and support until something better comes along. You are not meant to be the person who is taken for granted, who is overlooked, or who is asked to give endlessly without ever receiving the same in return.